there's things we don't hide from. Last year with the 16 team, we talk about conditioning on the ice. And for the last 15 years, I've been in USA Hockey seminars, and everyone tells young coaches that conditioning has no place on the ice anymore. It's a waste of your time. If you're going to condition, then hide it within drills. I adamantly disagree with that philosophy. We do condition. It's one of the reasons we test the way we do. It's one of the reasons our teams are as successful as they are. We don't hide from it either. We don't get on Monday's practice and pretend we're not going to go and do skating. If you've ever met a track athlete and they start doing 100 to 200s, I guarantee the coach is not hiding that from them. Runners will run to get better. Hockey players have to train at a certain rate and capacity and volume to get better. We'll never run from it. We'll meet it head on, we'll meet the challenges head on, and I know from going through this last year that our program is better for it. Now, the good news is, we don't spend a whole lot of time doing that stuff. We might spend 10 minutes a week. But when we do it, we're going to attack it, we're going to be the best we can at it, and we're not going to pretend it didn't happen. And that's going to be our philosophy in terms of how we manage our day-to-day. So everything we do is going to be with that. Players tonight, you're going to be introducing some rule changes. Part of what you need to know as players in this program, that every day you're here, you are influencing the policies and procedures that we have in place. Last year, for me, was probably the biggest learning experience of my year in terms of going from a coach into a program director and understanding what the needs were for running a program of this size. So we learned a lot. Everything we do, everything you're going to hear tonight and players you're going to hear later has one thing at its foundation, and that is the health and well-being of you. So every rule we make, everything we say has at its foundation. We had some tough times last year. We had some tough consequences. I think you'll be happy to know that the wheel of misfortune has been retired for good. For the new families, this is a pilot program that I brought with me from Merrimack. And I will blame and also thank Coach Moberg at Merrimack for introducing this to me. But when something happened in the dorm, we had the girls hit a button on a laptop or a phone, and the wheel would spin, and it would land on a consequence. Now, of all the things, the families and players in the room, of the things they agree with me on and don't agree with me on, I do consider myself very reasonable and adaptable to situations. When we spun that wheel the last time, I put like a get out of jail free option. So if it landed on that option, there was no consequence. When it landed on that, in my 40 years of existence, I have never heard a group celebrate as loud. I'm not gonna lie to you. One of the consequences was to clean the 42 acres of Bishop Kearney. So there was reason to celebrate. I mean, there was reason. There were some pretty stiff consequences on there. But I learned from that wasn't the approach we needed to take. And I'll get to that in a second in terms of some of the changes we're making there. I first want to go over hockey philosophy. It's a major reason why a lot of you are in the room. You're here for two big reasons. One is the academic structure of Bishop Kearney. Second is the hockey piece with Selects Academy, and we tie together to be who we are. Third, and this is a mission we're on this year, is to be able to provide your daughters with some tools in their lives to become more accountable and responsible, and to be better humans when they leave our institution and move on to college. That's our goal really at the end of the day. But hockey philosophy is a big topic in terms of why people sign up for a program like that. And as I said when I started, I don't beat around the bush when I talk about the reasons I do things, the reasons I'm in my position, and how our staff is going to operate. And I can tell you before starting this that our staff is assembled this year by no coincidence. We have a very experienced group of coaches that are moving forward with the same mission. We believe in the same things. And these conversations we have last no longer than a minute because we're all on the same page with how we want to move forward with things. I can speak for Lucy and I when I say we've grinded it out on the college recruiting front. We used to come and watch programs like yours for a lot of years and make decisions and grow observations about what these programs are about. I can tell you, as competitive as we are and as bad as we want to win, that every player on every team has to contribute. They have to contribute. At one point, there was a statement over the years that we would run this like a college program. I'm going to be very clear about this definition. We're running this to prepare our players for college. I was a college coach for 8 years. You don't want to hear this right now, and our job is to make sure this doesn't happen to your daughters, but some young women's college career is the worst 4 years of their life when it comes to hockey. It's a business. It's a business. You're not doing well, you sit. You don't come back in shape, you sit. It's a business. So when we have those conversations, and I know Lucy's had a lot of them recently about finding the best fit, it's incredibly important to find the best fit. Incredibly important. We, at this age, cannot run a program like that. It's something that I have not been on board with, even coaching college, because I don't feel like you get the best out of your program. At one instance at Merrimack, I was able to convince our head coach, who at that point was a two-line coach. She wanted to play 2 lines. I was able to convince her that if we utilized the 4 lines in our lineup, and trust me when I say our 4th line wasn't Division I caliber. We were year 2 into our program. It wasn't Division I caliber. These were Division III players. I convinced her that if we were able to utilize more of our lineup, we would sustain a better attack in games, and we would have better buy-in amongst the group, and more belief in each other and ourselves and our teammates to move forward. In year 2, we won a Thanksgiving tournament at Quinnipiac, and the first game was beating Quinnipiac in overtime, and they were a nationally ranked team. And I remember looking at one of our 4th line wingers on the offensive face-off when we were up, I think it was 2-1, and it was the last 2 minutes of the game, and she was out there, and our head coach trusted her to be out there, and we ended up finishing that game off, we ended up finishing that tournament off, and I said to myself, if we can motivate players and we can do our best to develop players and play as a full team, we will do better at the end of the day. I've brought that philosophy here, and I'm not shy about it. I'm not shy about talking about it. I'm not shy about explaining to you what I think the benefits are of it. That also means, though, and I would say that any 16 parent that was part of our program last year can attest to this, that doesn't mean equal ice time. What that means is, midway through the season, when you may think your daughter should be on the power play because we're in a crunch time in a November tournament, I might think this is a good opportunity maybe to develop some of our other lines, maybe give some of our other players an opportunity to have a real chance at it. And anybody who was at Nationals knows that there was far from equal line running. We have a process in place where we manage this, where we develop players, we utilize our lineup, and when push comes to shove, we are going to put our most experienced players and give ourselves a chance to win games. But it's never going to be at the expense of anybody on the lineup. I coach this way not only from experience as a coach in my college career, but I coach this way because I've experienced this as a player as well. And no one at the high school age should ever want to feel like they want to quit hockey because they're not given an opportunity by a coach. So, for those moving forward in terms of the mindset, that's the mindset here, and that's the mindset on both teams. It's not equal ice time. It's a lot more liberal ice time than you may think it is at times, but it's all with an end goal and process in mind for the end. We had a player in the room, and a lot of you know this player, when you talk about development, we had a player in the room last year who came in 12 months ago and did the testing that we're about to do tomorrow. And this young lady came in, we do a 75-pound bench press test. She came in and she did 1 rep. Now I know a lot of the new families and the new girls are nervous for tomorrow. I can tell you everybody's nervous for tomorrow. It's not just because you're new. Everybody's nervous for tomorrow. I can tell you that when I was roommates with 2 Olympians and they went through world championships and camps, that they were nervous. They were nervous for every testing segment. It's the nervousness and that feeling in your stomach that motivates you to actually do the work to perform better. Don't be afraid of that nervousness. Harness that nervousness. That's what will get you to do what's extra. So this young lady did 1 on the bench press test, and I know tomorrow we're going to have similar results. Doesn't matter. The 1 in September doesn't matter. It's the 19 in December that this young lady did that matters. It's the 32 in May that she did that matters. That's what matters. If you come in and you test at 1 in September, and you test at 1 in December, and you test at 1 in May, this probably isn't the program for you. It's about development, it's about pushing yourselves, it's about personal growth. With those things come the best results. As a coaching staff, we try to match that on the ice, challenge you on the ice, coach you, mentor you on the ice, and hopefully at the end of the day we have some good results in tournaments and down the stretch. That's an overview of our philosophy here, which I know very well that not everyone's on the same page with, and I'm fine with that. I can tell you again that our coaching staff is. Transitioning into the boarding program rules, like I said earlier, every day you're here, you're part of the process, you're part of the policies. I grossly underestimated our group last year in terms of what the challenges would be in the dorms and what life is like around school and hockey. Saying that, I do appreciate that the 40 young women we have in the auditorium today do live normal lives when they're away from the classroom and off the ice, and we will do our best to support that. I look at the rules of our dorm one way, and I think about this analogy all the time. I know some of the girls have been in a van with me before. Sometimes we're at 65, sometimes we get up maybe a little bit closer to 75, we gotta pull it back a little bit, depends if Julia's leading or not, going over the rink. But I think of the analogy of being on the road. So we had rules last year, we had consequences. We had some girls sitting in the auditorium right now that did not face 1 consequence, did not have 1 infraction. They avoided it all for the whole year. And it's how I think of driving. Every day I get out of my garage, I close it, I wait. I live downtown, so I navigate the downtown streets and I get on the interstate and I drive about 15 minutes to get here. I'm ruled by a lot of rules when I'm on the road. A lot of rules. There's a lot of rules that go into driving a car, getting from A to B. But I'm rarely pulled over. It's because I have an understanding of what the parameters of driving a car are. And do I push limits sometimes? Oh yeah, I sure do. I gotta get places sometimes, you know? Sometimes I get tied up at school, I gotta get to the rink. But I never push those limits so far that I'm gonna get pulled over and get a ticket. I never do. I know that spectrum. And that's what we expect of you. We know things aren't gonna be perfect. But we expect you to follow the rules and to make your judgments that fall within the lines. That's the expectation here. So last year we tried a few different things out. This year we're going with a new process. So the Wheel of Misfortune was our first step. It was a novel item, which we might just bring back for special events maybe. So this year what's going to happen is this. I'll give you a good example. I'm going to drop a few things on you right now that the players are going to hear later. So curfew this year is 10:30 across the board. It was 11 o'clock last year, so that's a change. And I know how change is received. Sometimes people have things to do right up to curfew. They have laundry. They're making smoothies. You're getting a sandwich. I understand that there's things to do. Here's how we're going to manage it. Curfew's 10:30. If you're out of your room at 10:31, you're going to be issued a write-up from the dorm supervisor. The write-up's going to be simple. It's going to take them 30 seconds to do. It's going to have your name, your room number, and the infraction. Julie Duquette was out of her room at 10:31 making a smoothie. I get that on my desk the next morning. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to scan it, and I'm going to send it to Jason, Keith, and Steve, and I'm going to copy your parents on it. Every time something happens, we're going to communicate it. We're going to be very consistent on this. The same philosophy as last year exists. If somebody has an infraction and your parents receive a 1-minute late curfew infraction, I think I can agree with what your parents are going to say. They're going to be like, hey, what happened? Hey, Julie, what happened? You'll explain your story. And parents will say, don't let that happen again. And if it never happens again, is that a big deal? No. It becomes a big deal when you're an individual that starts generating a lot of these write-ups. That's when it becomes a big deal. We're going to bypass the wheel of misfortune. We're going to bypass the mopping of the kitchens. We're going to bypass the morning workouts at 6:30. And we're going to go right to hockey consequences. The reason most of you are here. If you behave in a manner that creates a consistent pattern of behavior with these write-ups, it's going to start with a missed period. Then it's going to be a missed game. And then it's going to be a missed tournament. That's how we're going to operate this program moving forward. We anticipate that you're going to operate at times as normal high school students. We get that. We're going to ask you to stay within the lines. The reason being is not only for you and your well-being and your futures, the investment our coaches make, the investment our dorm supervisors make, the investment that our staff at the school makes in terms of taking care of you as a group and looking over you and caring about you, which we all do, there's an equal investment that I have to our staff. And I know when 2 of our staff members were camped out at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Friday in the spring because they knew some of you guys were breaking curfew, to me at the end of the day, that's not fair to them. I can always, and I promise you this, I can always explain and rationalize why we do things. All you have to do is ask. We had an incident last year that I'm not afraid to talk about where we had to make a coaching change. I'm not going to get into the details of that, but it caused a reaction within our group. And I said to our group, if anybody ever wants to know more about this situation, if anybody ever wants to talk to me about this, my door's always open. I'll talk to you about it. No one came to talk to me. Zero. I'm telling you what, very reasonable person. Our staff's very reasonable. We're going to work with you all the way on everything. All you got to do is ask. And that's how the overview and the management of the dorms is going to go. So, some more detailed items in regard to that. Parents, whether you know this or not, I think some of you do, there's a major epidemic across the world, across North America with e-cigarettes. Juuls, name the brand, major epidemic. They say that 1 in 3 high school students have tried it or are regularly partaking in it. One would assume that a group of 40 elite athletes would not partake in such a thing, but that is not the truth. That is not the truth. Division I athletes that I know, professional hockey players that I know, are partaking in these things as if they're chewing gum, as if it's a recreational activity that you can do in public because there's no perceived health consequences. And it couldn't be further from the truth. We have an extremely serious zero tolerance policy when it comes to this. So last year this was spoke of, but it never happened. On a regular basis, in order to manage, defend, make sure this is not happening in our dorm, for obviously the big reason of the health and well-being of our players, but also the safety. There's a fire hazard, most of them. And they're hidden always. They're hidden in backpacks, hidden in pants, hidden there, everywhere else. There's going to be scheduled searches of rooms, and there's going to be unscheduled searches. And those searches fall in line with the Bishop Kearney policy, which is also in line with many high school policies and prep school policies. That if you're chosen to be searched one day, that includes a full search of your room, a full search of your person, and a full search of your backpack. That's how we're going to manage this. And it's going to be on a regular basis. We will not allow this epidemic to seep into our program. We will not allow it. It's not going to happen. So that's the starting point. That's the tobacco part. That's the nicotine part. That policy is in place for not only that, but also for alcohol, for drugs, and for those things. Zero tolerance. If you're to be caught with a Juul or an electronic cigarette for whatever reason, it's an automatic 7-day suspension. Automatic 7 days. Parents, I want you to reflect on this topic, and I'm going to ask you to have conversations with your daughters about this, because our information that we've gathered as a coaching staff and administration is that this thing is way bigger than we may all know in the stands, that we may all understand. It's way bigger. It will have dramatic impacts. The issue is, and for the players that maybe don't know this, I have a feeling you do know this, because there's this perceived safeness about it, it's taken more, it's incredibly addicting, and the chemical compounds within the substance that is turned into vapor is incredibly harmful for your lungs, no different than if you were working in a factory and exposed to asbestos all day. I've been your age. I know how this sounds. Your parents have been your age. Just want to make this point very clear that we have a zero tolerance, and I hope that we never have to address this year moving forward. I'm going to trust that we don't have to do that. Good with that? Last thing I'll talk about before I pass it on to coaches to talk about some more specifics is that we are trying to align ourselves with the rules and procedures of other established boarding programs. So in the off season, we've done research, we've had conversations, done some due diligence in terms of rules, and every rule we're going to put in place is in existence in another school, and it's for your well-being, it's for health and safety, it's for teaching things like accountability. And tonight in our 9 o'clock meeting, we'll go through the details on some of those things. I can tell you that if you've watched the video, Change the World by Making Your Bed, that's going to have a direct impact in the direction of which we move. I'm going to pass it over to Lucy to go into a little bit more detail about some of the dorm rules, like our medication policy that we're rolling out.
Good help, come on. All right. We're going to take a little more informal approach. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Lucy Shadle. I am super excited to be here. I'll be co-head coach of the 19U team with Carrie here. But before we get into any more of that, I just wanted to touch on the medication policy. So I'm actually uncertain as to what the procedure was in the past, but at most boarding programs, at I think every program that we talk to, the policy will be that we will hang on to all over-the-counter meds, all prescription meds. So anything, whether it's Tylenol, Advil, or a prescription medication, that will be in the control, it'll be in the hands of an adult on campus at all times. If we're on the road, we will be distributing that. And this is for, again, everyone's safety, everyone's well-being. This is so we can track patterns. If someone needs Advil every night, there might be another issue. This is so we can ensure that your daughters are taking the medications that they're supposed to in the quantity that they're supposed to be taking them. So it's really just to regulate that and keep everyone safe and healthy.
With that, if you don't know me, I'm Carrie. I'm the co-head coach for the 19U team. I'm also the assistant program director. But I will be your lead up in the dorm with Julia. We'll also have another lady with us this year, Callie. She'll be awesome. She'll be living towards the end of the building, next to like the 16 years. But with that, if you need anything, I'm here. Julia's here. We're your second moms. We're here to help you through everything. But we please ask that you respect us, just like you would respect your mother or your father, your grandmother, or your guardian. Okay? So with that, we're here to be positive, have some fun, and help you guys grow moving forward into college. So let's have some fun this year.
We'll open it up to any questions, and then I'll have some final remarks after that. But anything anybody's curious about. One thing I do want to mention is that, and I mentioned this in the email, that we do have a new parent volunteer to help coordinate some parent activities, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to ask Janet Wynn to stand up where she's at and just say a few words.
Welcome. I know I got to speak with most of the incoming parents, and welcome everyone, but I'm